All right, everybody, we are here in Texas, lined up for Q1 against Dougie. It is warm, to say the least, down here. It's 90, 91 degrees today. A little breezy. See if we can't go A to B and just make the car happy this first go. And tonight, there's the big qualifying session. See what we can't lay down. Anyways, that's it from the staging lanes.
Doug Collette.
Hey guys, we are in the lanes for Q2. Q1 went pretty good. We clicked it off a little early just to make sure everything was happy, and she ran a 380 with a 9, 380 with a 9. And I think that put us 7th, which is good. Motor came back happy, which is good. So pretty excited. We'll hit this. It's cooled off quite a bit here this evening. We're running about 8:30 and see if we can't lay down a good run tonight. Figured I'd answer a question real quick. I've gotten several questions on throttle wax and bring them back or what, all kinds of stuff about throttle wax. So back in the day when they did throttle wax, when they surfaced the disc back then, they did it with a cutter, so it had little lines in it, kind of like a record. And then when they would throttle whack it, and it would kind of scuff those down and set the clutch, or they called it seating the clutch sometimes. Sometimes they'd load the clutch against the motor, and it kind of gall it a little bit and give it a little bit more bite. Now we use a stone cutter, so our discs are perfectly flat, and we don't want a throttle whack to upset anything in the clutch. That's mostly why we don't do it. It's just not necessary anymore. There's still a couple guys that do it. You'll see some small guys that'll do it, and you'll see every now and then like Scott Palmer. They throttle whack all the time for the fans and stuff. We just don't want to hurt anything. But holding stuff down, they say, why is guys grabbing on the wing stands and stuff during the throttle whack? It's to keep it on the stands. The stands, it just sets on the stand so it could jump off, and so you'll have a couple guys hold down on it just to make sure that the car doesn't jump off the stands. It's a good time for fans, but it doesn't really there's no advantage to it for us as far as trying to go rounds. So that's it in a nutshell. We'll take a video of this run, and hopefully it'd be nice to go number 1 tonight, because there's a $15,000 bonus if you can do so. Alright guys, so Philip Sorrell asked what's with all the different noises or tones of exhaust that this thing makes when we're just idling it from at the starting line. And he knew one was because we started on gas and then switched it over to nitro. So I'll just kind of run through some of the steps why it would change tones that you hear in the videos or you see live. So first off, we're gonna put gas in it, start it on gas, and then we roll it over to nitro. So when they roll it over to nitro, they come down to these air bleeds here, which are right here, and they're going to adjust the idle to what we determine we want it to be at a given RPM. So whatever Mike dictates that be. So they screw air bleeds until they get to the idle, and that'll change the tone a little bit too. Then when Clay rolls forward and does the burnout, we only give him a little bit of throttle, and then when he comes back, it'll have changed the idle a little bit just on the air gap in the clutch. So then he'll come back and they'll readjust the air bleeds to get that predetermined idle set again. Then Mike will adjust this valve here, which will richen or lean the mixture, because we want to start it with, not as much fuel, get some heat in it, and then we're going to want to add fuel once it has some heat in it. And so he'll adjust that at the starting line, and that'll adjust the way the engine sounds too, and you'll notice that a lot more smoke will start coming out of the pipes, so more raw nitro at idle. And then the last tone change will be, then once he stages, in here, there's the lever over here. Clay will put it on what we call the high side, which means he'll open the fuel pump, that lever there, all the way, and that gives it even more fuel, and that's when they change tone again. So that should answer all the tone changes basically at idle. Chuck H asked, do we replace piston sleeves at the track? And yes, we absolutely replace sleeves at the cylinder sleeves at the track all the time. If you hurt a piston, you pinch your ring land, scuff a cylinder wall, we're going to replace it. So you see here we have these toolboxes on each side of the car, and each one in the bottom drawer has a bunch of sleeves in it ready to go. They've been honed, we know what size they are, and so on and so forth. And once the motor's hot, when we come back from a run, the sleeves come out relatively easy. We use that slide hammer right there. We'll pull the sleeve out, and then a cold sleeve will slip right in by hand. Remember the cylinder head, the way the registers work on these sleeves, I'll show you real quick. It has this big lip on the top of it here. That's what holds the sleeve, and that ring is the firing ring, and the head holds them down into place. So they don't have to fit in the block per se very tight, because the head holds. Alright guys, so we are in the lanes for Q3. Q2, the session went so long last night, we made the decision after the third oil down or whatever it was to just not run the car. We went back, put it in the box, got some sleep so we can come out here today and concentrate on winning on Sunday, and we're going to get data today to do that. Last night wouldn't give us any data to help us on race day, so it just really wasn't worth it once it got to be so late. So that's it in a nutshell why we didn't make that second qualifier. But hopefully today we go A to B a couple times, get a good handle on the track so we can go rounds tomorrow. Alright guys, we are in the staging lanes for the last qualifier here in Dallas. We are lined up against Alex Laughlin and Scotty Palmer's car, which is awesome. We really like those guys and have a good time with them. So anyways, go to A to B. We did a 382 on the last lap, didn't improve, but ran pretty good in the heat, didn't hurt anything, so that's good. So see what we can do here. It's hotter yet, but see what we can do, see if we can improve a little bit, see if we can get in the top half of the field. I think right now we're qualified number 12. Alright guys, it is Sunday morning race day. Last qualifier went really well for us. We ran a 74 in the heat, that was really good for us, and we were number 2 of the session, so we're hoping for a little more heat today and an unexpected little mistings going on this morning, which wasn't scheduled, but anyways, we'll wait it out and see what we can do today. I had a question about, well, more than one, about the slicks and why we don't do big smoky burnouts like they used to and things like that. Just the tire technology has changed. You don't have to put as much heat in them to get them to be as sticky as they can get, and in fact you can overheat them. So we don't do as big and gnarly of a burnout as we used to. Still amp it up a little bit for some match racing, but for out here we want to do them the same every time, and they just don't need as much heat put in them. And that's basically what it boils down to. Thanks. Alright, so David Wood asked how many passes do we get out of a blower belt. So there's one of our blower belts right there. Gates, RCD, poly chain, nitro belt. Anyways, we are sponsored by Gates. So we don't risk it, and we only let them run one pass. I know that there's guys that run several passes out of them, but being we have enough of them, we just ran one pass, and it's one less variable we have to worry about. But they'll go several passes. On a lot of teams, they'll run them 4 or 5 passes, and same type of belt. They're a little bit narrower on an alcohol car. Will run, you know, half a season or better. So anyways, that's a belt in a nutshell. Not the smallest things on the planet. but make pretty good stuff. All right, so Robert Caruso asks, how do we maintain balance when we're always switching rods and pistons? It's not that hard because all the pistons are weigh the same and all the rods weigh the same because we're from all the same manufacturer, and even if they're different manufacturers, they're really close. And these things do not have to be perfectly balanced. We don't rev to 10,000 RPM or anything like that, so it's not as crucial as you would think. I mean, yeah, you need it close, but it's not as crucial to be dead on as one might think. So Ronnie Blair asked, what's the lifespan of the front runners, the front tires? So there's our front tires, and you get 50, 60 runs, maybe a few more out of them, depending on what's happened to them in the life. But yeah, so maybe 2 sets a season. They last pretty good compared to the rear slicks. And we get 7, 8, 9 passes out of the set of rear, and then sometimes as little as 1 pass out of the rear if they chunk at the big end. Some tracks are harder on the tires than others, like Maple Grove. Maple Grove's pretty hard on tires. We'll chunk them out pretty quick. Vegas can be hard on tires at times, but it really depends on everything combined. But front tires, usually, just a couple sets a season. So Truck Letters asked if we, ever use an ultrasonic cleaner or something like that, and there we do. We have a small one, and we ultrasonic clean on the lifters after every pass, and then re-roll them out, make sure there's no garbage in them, and we'll ultrasonic clean other small parts and things from time to time. But yeah, we definitely get used quite a bit. All right, so here's my bearing drawer, so all my upper and lower bearings for the car. Uspect asks, what are our clearance of the mains and the rod bearings? So our clearances are, I'm not going to be completely exact here, but we're pushing around 6 thousandths. So about 6 thousandths main bearing clearance and about 6 thousand rod bearing clearance, right in that ballpark. A lot more than you'd think. You need a little bit of space for these big things because they move and twist and flex everything. All right, guys, first round went well. Ran 76, I believe, got around Langdon. So now we got Brittany Force in round 2. See how we do. Hey, everybody. Well, Dallas didn't go quite as well as we would have hoped, but not bad. I mean, the car was running good, and we went up against Brittany, and we were the second quickest car of the round. Would have beat everybody else, but they were the quickest car of the round, so we lost. That's how racing goes. But a little frustrating, but the car's running well. I got a lot of hope for Bristol. We're heading out there. I leave tomorrow. So hopefully we can turn some wind lights on and do really well. I thought I'd answer a few more questions here sitting at home. I've gotten a lot lately, which I appreciate. Everybody continuing to ask questions, like and subscribing. I answer what I can. It's been a lot of fun, so I really appreciate that from everybody. So we got let's see, Odds Mercada. Can you use the same short block in a funny car as you can a dragster? Yeah, the short blocks are basically identical. There's some accessories that are a little bit different. They run a different tile oil pump and they run a much lower, they run closer to what we would call a dry sump system. So they run a lot shorter pan, and they have a reservoir tank where we don't. It's all wet sump. They don't have a dry sump in the effect of a whole bunch of scavenges and stuff like that, but they do run a little bit style, mainly so that they can run a low profile pan for ground clearance because of the way they mount the motor, and headers. And then the way that their intake is, I don't know if they I think they set the blower back as far as we do, but they run a different injector hat. But that's it. The short block is basically the same. So either way, that would work fine. Let's see what else we got here. Calvin Roberts asks, at the starting line, how do you guys tolerate working around the nitro? You just kind of get used to it. I mean, you never can really get used to nitro. So if you take a nitro, I mean, if you take a deep breath, you're going to hack and tear up and all kinds of stuff. But you kind of breathe shallow, hold your breath for a little bit. Like in the pit, when we do the warm up in the pit, some guys will wear gas masks. I don't, because I don't have a gas mask that I can fit my glasses underneath, and I do the timing. I check in the time with the timing light. So generally I'll breathe for a while, and if the pit starts filling up, I just take a deep breath and hold my breath for 30, 40 seconds and walk away. And then when I walk away, after I get done doing the timing. But up at the starting line, there's usually enough breeze, there's usually enough motion that you don't get wafted too hard. Sometimes it's coming right in your face and it's a little hard to take. Breathe a little shallow, but I don't think anybody truly gets so used to it that it doesn't bother them. It's always gonna bite a bit. Got a couple more. Let's see. Dean Grave asked, a car running in the 70s or low 80s versus, high 90s and Ford, what would the difference in parts or this or that be? You got to run, you can't run the older generation heads and run a 370. We run AJ7s, which a lot of people do, or a Force or a Schumacher head is real similar. A lot of it's in tune-up, a lot of it's in clutch. There is some certain parts and stuff that you need. You need a good blower. You need a blower that's creating enough boost. Some of them are a little looser than others, or not getting stripped as often, so they don't run as much boost. On some of the lower budget teams, they can't afford to do that as much as a higher budget team, so they don't push the blower quite as hard. A lot of stuff like that. The short blocks, what I build, they're really similar. They're not running anything different than we would run in a short block. I don't believe, anyways. But it's some of that stuff. Heads especially, blower especially, clutch management, and then a lot of it's tuning. A lot of it is why crew chiefs get paid what they do when they're good. It's not an easy job. There's a lot of variables in getting those things to go down the track and getting them to go down the track fast. But definitely do have some parts advantages and disadvantages. But that's about it, or about it that I can speak to that I know. I don't want to tell you something way off base or wrong when it comes to that stuff. But I would say, definitely heads, definitely blowers. And then from there, a lot of it's just management. And whether they're running a 5 or a 6 clutch, but you can get into the 70s with either, I believe. And then, let's see, I had another good question I liked. Mike H. Asked, could you find a way to disengage the blower way down track as we got enough mile an hour? Would that act like a blower and we don't need as much horsepower, or if we could get enough airflow from the speed? No. I know they say it every now and then, the announcers and stuff say we make more horsepower than we need. That's absolutely not true. And it does take a lot of horsepower to run that blower on the big end, but it's still producing so much air pressure into the motor that even the velocity at 300 miles an hour is not going to go into the injector and duplicate what the superchargers do, not even close. There'd be no benefit to trying to do that, to free up the horsepower that it's taking and just drawing atmospheric air even at that high rate of speed. It's not going to come close to how much boost we make in any way, shape, or form. It wouldn't be practical at all. We still need to make all the horsepower we're making. We don't want to, and because that's when we're going 1-to-1. I mean, the more horsepower, if we can make 12,000 horsepower, we could use it out there. You make 13 horsepower, you could use it out there. You're not going to use it at the starting line. You're not going to use it for a while, but once your clutch goes basically 1-to-1, you're going to give it everything it's got if it'll take it. So definitely just not feasible. Anyways, that's about it for questions. I got a few more I want to answer. Somebody asked me how I polish the crank in the car. I need to get a minute to kind of just show you how that works, but you can get it done. If you hurt a main and you need to polish the main, you drop the cap. When you see that the bearing's damaged, I can roll the upper bearing out and I can slide emery cloth up there and somebody can turn the crank for me and I can polish it around. You're not really moving crank material, you're just getting rid of the black death from the oil coking and copper coming off. As long as it's not too bad. I mean, they can get so bad that you can't deal with it, but you can get rid of that. The rod bearings, same thing. Use emery cloth, and then I also polish them. I have a lapping deal and some polishing compound I use after I sand it with 400 grit. I'll polish it with some compound and stuff, but it's actually not that hard to do. You just have to have somebody turn the crankshaft over for you once everything's off the motor, and go. You have to, when you're polishing it, you have to be real careful that the emery cloth is going perfectly straight up and down. You don't want it to slide a little bit way and slide the other way and put scratches in it that aren't running perfectly around the journal. But that's about it. Recognizing what you can fix and what you can't fix is probably one of the harder things to do, because if you think you can fix it and you take all that time and then you can't fix it, you still got to do a motor swap, that can make it really hard to get to the next round. So you just got to be careful in the judgment call of whether you can get it to clean up or not. So that's it for tonight, guys. Hope you guys like and subscribe and are enjoying what we're still doing. Keep asking questions and I'll keep answering them. Appreciate y'all. Just 3 races left this year, so here we go. Hopefully we can still crack a win before the season's over. Thanks.